Welcome to Conversations with Writers. I'm Andy, I'm a writer, and this is an educational YouTube series meant to catalog writing strategies and philosophies through conversations with other writers. Lisa Croce is a writer of novels, short stories, and essays living in Los Angeles, where she received her MFA in creative writing at Antioch University. Her work can be seen in Obelus, Lunch Ticket, and Sentience Literary Journal. Lisa is also co-founder and fiction editor for Sentience Literary Journal and fiction editor for Variant Literature. Links to Lisa's Twitter, Instagram, and websites are listed in the video description box. I've also included a link to the Granny Witch story Lisa helped me revise for publication in Variant Literature, which gets referenced during our conversation. I would not have achieved the level of regional intimacy that exists in the published draft without her guidance. And this is my conversation with Lisa.
Are you enjoying your Variant publication?
I am. Thank you so much. It's great. It looks great.
It really does. I'm so excited. I mean, it just is so topical and heartwarming, and it was just really touching the way it was written. So I'm so thrilled for you. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for helping me.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I mean, honestly, I don't know if you've been a part of a journal, but there's so many submissions that get sent in. And as someone that submits, I know what it's like. But when you get something that you connect with, it's such a magical moment. I was like, dibs, I want this one.
Thank you so much. And I have such big plans for Granny Witch.
There's so much that you can kind of extract from that. And like I said, it's so topical that I feel like there's an endless amount of sort of empathy and just knowledge that we can learn, like hearkening back. And so are you thinking of continuing to write a couple of pieces, almost like in a mini little series about it?
Yeah, so I think what I want to do is create a short story collection that involves this character, that sends her through that time period.
I also keep thinking about that book, like just the pages flipping and like all the knowledge and that even potentially being passed down and the things and science and all this stuff that you can learn from that is really unending with potential. So,
and the book actually comes up in the current story that I'm writing now.
There's so much potential in that book. And it's something I think the reader can tangibly think of in their mind, almost as like kind of an emblem of the message. So I think having something like tangible that you could hold is really impactful.
So how are you doing?
I'm good. I mean, I've been sort of having a little bit of writer's block, which I never thought I'd use that word. I was like, oh, I'm past that. Writer's block, what is that? Yeah, it found me. And I think it was like a series of the holidays compounding with vacations and just like sheer exhaustion and then getting COVID. So I've been sort of seeking to learn from it. Like, what can this teach me? So it's been a lot of that, a lot of introspection. And I've been trying to like lean on my fellow writers and talk about that on social media, just because that is something, community is so big, the writers community, but also just like getting comfortable with the fact that sometimes you have a stretch where it just doesn't come to you and being okay with that, sort of letting it wash over you, that fear of like, I'm never going to get another good idea. And knowing that that's total crap, but the fear is real and there's ego in there and that's all okay. And sort of just sitting tight, trusting in the ideas, the characters, the messaging, and knowing that it'll all resume soon. That's where I'm at.
I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but have you tried tarot cards for writer's block?
Doesn't sound ridiculous at all. What do you mean? No, my mom actually does a little tarot card, so I should ask her what the hell's going on. No, I'm gonna do that.
That's what I've been doing lately. And I even wrote an entire poem out of a tarot card. It just got picked up.
Yay!
This is publication tested.
Yeah, right. Got the blue check, or there's no blue check anymore. For me, it's about too many ideas. My true passion is novel writing. So with me, it's just too many ideas, too many storylines, too many subplots feeding into the big plot, too many characters I fall in love with. So that's it. It's just like interconnecting and trying to make it awesome. I mean, not to downplay it, but that's the goal, right?
Just having something out there that you can look at acrostically, because these all communicate in pictures, right? Kind of helps sort of keep you on track.
And I said before, I stopped believing in writer's block, but I think there are blocks in your brain and there are like barriers you have to push through within your creativity. And I think the antithesis of that is being open to saying, I'll never say never, or I'm never going to not try X, or I'm not going to be, shutting myself off from advice, or, hey, this worked for me. Because I really think you never know where an idea or a spark can come from. That's sort of the magic of being creative. I think to close yourself off to that, you're shooting yourself in the foot, and that doesn't make sense. So yeah, I'll do it. I'm all about it.
So, what are you working on now, and what motivated the project?
I'm working on a novel currently. It is sort of mob related, Italian mob. It is exploring a dozen topics because that's how I am. It's really kind of about three different timelines. One where the main character, who's like the mob boss, sort of begins his journey in the early 70s. One in sort of the early 2000s, when a lot of the plot points sort of explode, like the point of no return. And then present day, whatever that is, or whenever it turns out to be. And that is really about his daughter. And I was really kind of struck by, I'm Italian. I'm a second generation Italian. So really kind of just exploring the ideas of like how women don't really have a story within mob stories, and being someone that was so raised on that and entertained by that. I mean, The Godfather was massive in my house, and Goodfellas and everything. And there's just no place for women. They don't exist in those stories. They're secondary. They're wives that don't know anything. They're daughters that are kept out of the loop. They're the people that Tony Soprano spends his time with when he's not with his wife. Like, they don't have a bigger storyline. So I really was kind of motivated by that. I saw a documentary done by Ron Howard and I believe Brian Grazer that was about abuse, sexual abuse within the Boy Scouts. And I was really impacted by that. And it got me thinking about these organizations that are largely run by men, geared to men, involving boys as they grow up, and how much you can hide there, how it's like this incubator for evil if you let it. While it can do a lot of wonderful things, it's also a place of secrecy and sort of, these retreats in the woods where you go off, and largely, I think in our history and even still today, men are really taught not to talk about things and not to explore their feelings. And while we're making changes to that end, we have a massive history in this. So I thought, if I'm interested in writing about the mob, that is vastly about just men and secrets and not talking and snitches get stitches and all of that kind of thought processes. So I thought, what if we combine the two? So there's exploration of that. There's exploration of where do women fit in these roles. And I also really wanted to explore the Black mafia that existed and still probably exists today in the same way that the Italian mafia and other mafias exist in a less known way today. So I explore that too. So there's racial disparity. There's a lot of interconnecting storylines and different walks of life, people that come together. So that's what I'm working on currently. The inspiration, like I said, was partly me growing up Italian and having, that sort of makeup in my blood, having been to Italy before, luckily, and that documentary. And I'm always really drawn to dark stories, and it's kind of a joke within my circle of writer friends, like, oh, is Lisa going to write a happy story today? Yeah, I don't think so. I look for the pockets of untold stories. I look for the tough stories to tell. Those are things that I feel really compelled to write about. At the end of the day, it's really about what brings me back to the laptop, what keeps me motivated, what moves me. And those stories tend to move me the most. So, and I would also say largely like trauma, the humanity, how no one can escape trauma in varying sizes of it. And I'm really fascinated with that. And maybe I'm trying to work out my own traumas by my character's trauma. So that's where I'm at today. And we'll see how it goes. It's still a work in progress.
I can't wait to read the story.
Me too.
What have you learned about yourself through writing?
How long do we have? I'm really a woman of dichotomy. The only way that I can live is to sort of reckon the minutia of life with the vastness of it all. So I'm kind of constantly zooming in and out of that and learning a lot from that, because walking this earth, we're in this body, we're very aware of who we are, and that might bring with it selfishness and ego. Of course, we can't help that. This is the body that we're in for the time we are. But there's also this vastness of like, I'm one of many. I'm very tiny. I'm a dot in the universe, looking up at the sky. And I think there's beauty in both. And so I think that fiction is my chosen path to figure out who I am and what I can learn. There's a safety in it for me writing through other characters. I have no idea who to quote here, but I've heard people say that, everybody expects nonfiction to be the truth, but fiction is really where it's at, because you are able to hide and you're knowingly hiding, but most authors are really trying to figure out themselves. And I'm no exception to that. I'm trying to figure out myself, my thoughts. I say that to say that sometimes I'm really just in a character. I'm fully engulfed in who they are. I'm not thinking about me, but how could I not bring me to the table? So I think it just teaches me that it's okay to be human. It's okay to be flawed. It's beautiful to be flawed, to celebrate uniquenesses, and that there's something magical and special in all of us, but we have to be willing to see it and celebrate it, because if you're not willing, who else would be? And why might they if you're not willing to? So I think that's what it's taught me the most, just kind of to lean into that and to keep searching, because I don't ever want to get to a point where I know everything or feel like, okay, I'm good, I'm done with whatever it is, learning, growing, writing. I don't want to get there. I want to be okay with the fact that I don't know everything, that I have a lot under my belt, but there's a lot to go, and that I'm so lucky to get to do this really difficult, heartbreaking, passionate, amazing thing every day, or not every day, right, every day, but a lot of days, even in the writer's block, even when I'm like ready to rip my hair out and my wall is covered in like notes and printouts and post-it notes, which I feel really bad, because they're not eco-friendly, but like I need to, like that's me. That's the kind of writer I am. My brain explodes onto the walls. And, even in those moments where I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but nobody does. And sort of just acquiescing to that. Like, I don't know everything, but let me try and enjoy this, and let me try and connect with other people like you or my writer friends or the people I've met through school. That's the magic. And I might be reminding myself of it right now as I say this to you.
What's the role or responsibility of writing for you? What keeps you generating material? Why write?
Again, the dichotomy of like, of course I would love, masses to read what I write, or to experience what my characters are going through. That's the goal. I would be remiss if I didn't say that, of course. But I think, like with my earlier answer, I'm really writing to figure out what the hell I think about things, because, the brain has this magical ability to like store stuff in the back and not let us know. and it just, we can stay comfortable and have no idea of certain things that we're doing or thinking, or bad habits. And so I think I'm writing to understand. I'm writing to connect. I'm also writing to figure out what I think about things, because again, there's that safety net of doing it through this sort of cheesecloth, if you will, like filtering down what I think, and then discerning what I think or my beliefs or my takeaways through that. It's funny though, when I write, I never want people to feel a certain way about something. I don't want people to be like, I'm for this, I'm against this, I would never do that, or something like that. I don't really care about what they take away. I care that they think, I care that they feel, I care that they show up, I care that there's any kind of reaction at all, that their brain lights up. That's what I care about. It's about like starting a conversation, starting a feeling, making someone awaken a part of their brain that was long like in a sleeping beauty sort of coma. That kind of thing. That's what I care about. I don't really care about convincing you of anything. I don't think you can really do that. You can present people with a story, you can move them, you can try to connect and help them empathize if that's hard for them, but you're never going to change their mind. You might eventually do that by making them feel, you might not. You might make them more certain of what they knew all along. And that's okay. That's fine. That's not my objective. Obviously, when I'm drafting, when I'm doing the writing, I'm doing it to satisfy myself, right? I'm trying to make it make sense to me. I'm trying to challenge myself. I'm trying to learn. I love asking myself questions like, well, what if I did this? Like if the whole time I have like an outline where I kind of, my outlines are kind of a joke. I kind of know where I'm going, and then I'll hit a point where maybe I'm blocked, maybe I'm bored, whatever. And I'll just go like, what if I did the total opposite of what I was going to do? What would happen then? And that sort of turns it on its head. So I'm almost like allowing myself to have an open-ended question and not know where things are going in that sense. And some of the best stuff that I do is produced by that notion of just like, what if I didn't do what I thought I was going to do, or what's expected of this character or me as a writer? What if I did the opposite? I think a way that I do that a lot is interjecting humor. I'm really kind of obsessed with the edge where two intense emotions jut up against each other. So I really love, the darkest of moments and then just like a sick joke, or two characters like laughing it up, giving each other shit, and then just one of them loses it and gets really emotional, or kind of the facade of it all is broken down.
This leads us into the next major question. When you're struggling for whatever reason, how do you get yourself back to the page?
I'm thrilled to have set up a segue for you. I think one of the big things with writing is, I'll speak for myself, but I know, having a lot of friends that are writers, pressure, right? Like, this has to be this. This has to be the pivotal moment. This has to be amazing. This has to be funny. This has to, whatever. This is fill in the blank. This has to be whatever. And I think part of that is the sheer amount of pressure that writers put on themselves. So getting rid of that in any way possible, trying to remove that pressure. This has to be the book that breaks me, breaks me into it, or this has to be the story that gets published and changes my life. Yeah, of course, most of us would want that. I'm not immune to that. But at the same time, like, I have to just finish this thing. I have to want to just sit down at this desk every day and be like, hey, what's up, characters? Hey, I missed you. Like, that's it. I have to show up and do the thing. So what's going to get me there? Pressure's not going to get me there. Absolutely not. That's going to make me panic and freeze, and which I do a lot of days. So knowing that you're going to do that, understanding the process, having done this many, many times, I just am sort of like, okay, there's like I don't know, I don't like the word resignation, but like just sitting in it, like, getting in the bathtub and it's super hot, but trusting that the water's going to cool down and it's going to be all right. I'm not going to burn, like, I'm going to be able to sit in this tub. It's not something that I'm not unsafe. So there's that. There's a lot of trust. There's a lot of letting go of the pressure. I think a really good way that I've learned to do that is to just tell yourself, like, I'm messing around. So today I'm going to open up a new doc, a blank page. I'm just going to fuck around and I'm just going to make this character do this thing, or I'm going to change the tense and I'm going to write in first person, or I'm going to do this writing prompt, or I'm going to be silly. And like, I had a dream. I'm going to make my character do this thing I did in whatever it is, like, remembering to play, almost like that childlike freedom of like, I don't care. Because when you're a kid, there is no pressure. You don't know what bills are. You don't know what, like, workplace politics are. You're just like, I want to get my hands dirty and play in the mud. That's all I care about. I just want to show up and have a good time. That stuff, like tapping into that, being able to just show up and like, why did I start doing this? Because I loved it, because it lit me up, it brought me joy. And so getting back to that, which number one enemy is pressure. So I do that. I'm going to start doing tarot cards, obviously, talking to my friends about it, addressing it. I'm one of those people, like, if I'm in a situation socially where I'm awkward, I feel awkward, I'm one of those people that's like, I'm awkward. I say it out loud. Like I have to. It's like a overinflated balloon. And I'm like, if I don't release this air, I'm going to pop and explode and the whole room will look. So I have to release the air. And the way to do that is to just go, hey, I'm uncomfortable. So to me, that's what doing that is, like, getting over it. There's no one here, writing. I was just talking to one of my writer friends today, and she was like, via social media, she was like, it's so solitary. We get locked in our heads on everything. So again, what's the opposite of that? Reaching out, having a community, posting things on social media when I don't want to, because I'm like the worst with that, talking about stuff that makes me uncomfortable, saying I'm awkward when I feel awkward, that kind of stuff, shining light on the dark so that it doesn't consume, because it's so easy to get consumed. So far, those are my best tips. And it's just trial and error. So it's a lot of to be determined.
What sort of revision strategy or strategies do you find most useful when revising your own work? What sort of problems or challenges do these activities help you solve?
Revision is a bit of a different beast. It's more like big picture stuff, I think. I will personally, because novels are so vast that I get really lost in all of it. I remember being in therapy a few years ago, and I was like talking to my therapist about just being overwhelmed being a novelist. And I was describing it as like feeling like I was in the middle of the ocean and there were like these big tsunami sized waves that were coming for me, and I was just like, I don't know where to go, where do I look, I have no life draft, and I just wouldn't die. Like I was like, I'm still alive. So you have to do the thing. Like ultimately I want to do the thing, so I have to just deal with the waves but find a way through it. So for me, I think starting with the fact that I have to just break down the vastness of all these pages, like the scrolling, the going through and trying to catalog it all, and your eyes are just seeing words and words. It's like, that'll drive anyone nuts. So breaking it down for me was huge. That's when I really started to see my revisions change. Just something as simple as like starting a new document, having a master document. And then when I felt like I, was really good about this particular chapter or whatever it was, and then I pop it into the master. So that was really simple. Just like boiling it down, breaking it, decompartmentalizing it into smaller parts, and then feeding the larger part at the end was massive for me as a novelist. I think also, like, again, with the breaking it down, like, okay, this pass through, I'm just going to look for this thing. Am I nailing the emotion? Am I deep diving into the character in this section? Like every time I'm in a different point of view, because I write in multiple point of views, am I deep diving? Is this the voice of, this particular character? And I would just do a straight up pass through for that. So I think, again, breaking it down, making it more like bite-sized pieces that were, I'm not going to choke on them, they're much more manageable, is a great way for me to do that. And then I think also just taking time away from it is important too, and being able to sort of go back with fresh eyes. Because how many times have you been reading something that you wrote over and over and over and over, that at the 57th read, it's like your brain is just mush and you can't even, like, you're like, I don't know, is this good? Can I write? Does my eye like spell check for me? I don't even know. I remember one time I've been working on something for so long, I had the word that, not even, I don't know, whatever it was, but it was the same word in a row, and I didn't even see it for like 30 passes because I was just like, step away from the document. So I did. And so I think that's super crucial. I think also learning to be able to have a celebration, even if it's just a night off watching your favorite show, go out and have a glass of champagne with a friend, something fun to celebrate the little wins, because it's such a solitary road that you don't remember sometimes why you started. And again, getting back to the joy, because that's what's going to keep you coming back again and again to do the thing. So yeah, it's more like life lessons. Those seem to stick with me more, I think.
What is your favorite part of the writing process and why?
When it's over, no. Is it cheating if I say escaping? I, from the time I was a little girl, loved going somewhere in my brain. And I would do it as much as possible. I would watch something on TV, Mr. Rogers, whatever it was, Fraggle Rock. I think I'm dating myself, but cartoons or anything. And I would go in my room and I would write an additional scene in my head and I would like act it out. And that was so fun to me. I remember being really little and I had this favorite coat, and my mom and I were walking in somewhere and she was holding my hand. I knew I was safe. And I put the hood over my head and I just was like looking up to the sky through the hood, and she was guiding me. And I just was like writing a story. I was daydreaming. I was like, where are we going? We're going to a castle and we're doing this. And I was just always writing. I was just always creating stories. I think it took me a really long time personally to realize that writing was my medium. So I was creating stories, creating characters. I was always the friend that would tell a story of something that happened. And instead of it being it could have been like a 3-minute story, but I would turn it into like a half an hour extravaganza. And all of my friends would come over and sit down and just be like, what's she going to say next? Because it was like my time to tell a joke. It was my time to just be like a spaz. Because, I think I was always awkward and I was always silly and I was always sort of like creating, and I thought that was weird because that's what a lot of society likes to make you think about yourself. And then I learned that was like my superpower, that being able to tell those stories, being able to go in my head and create a character, create an additional, it was like the first fanfic that I ever did was like me going into my room and writing an additional scene. And so I think learning that, being able to figure that out took me I felt like it was a long time. And then when writing came along, I was like, oh, this is a thing. This is a thing. This is my thing. And so that's what it became for me. So that's, if I had to boil it down to like a feeling or something that I'm trying to recreate, I think it's just little me trying to capture that magic over and over and over and over and over again. And then as I've grown, it's things that are important to me, as with you and your writing, topics that I'm passionate about, things that I care deeply about, things that have impacted me and those that I love, things that move me, things that get me out of bed every day. I tend to be one of those people that like, I'm a big empath. I've had a really hard time figuring out what that is and how to deal with that, because you just feel so much all the time. And I think it's a double-edged sword because it's made me, that little girl who wants to capture things and hold on to them, but also share them with others. But it's been tough too, because there are times when I feel so deeply about causes, especially in the world we live today, where it just like bogs me down. And I feel like I want to help everyone and I want everyone to hear important things and I want everyone to care the way that I do. And they don't. And that's okay. Some days it's less okay. But I think that's what, as an adult, I'm trying to take that spark and I'm trying to mix it with things that I'm so passionate about. I feel really lucky to do it. It feels like a big responsibility. I'm putting that on myself. But I feel really lucky. I feel really blessed. I feel really like my most authentic when I'm doing that. So it's the most me I can be. And that's the best that I can do for myself every day. Every single day, there's something where I'm like, what the hell am I doing? But I have to show up for myself, for others, for my characters, for my friends, for my loved ones. So that's how I do it. So I do think about it. I absolutely think about it. I think that being able to know your why, being able to know what's important to you, helps keep you as authentic as you can be. And it's still a struggle for me. There's still times where like, okay, I'm like, you're doing it again. You're thinking about who you're writing for, or you're thinking about accolades, or you're thinking about the fact that like you feel like no one knows who you are, or cares, or whatever it is, whether it's the writing world or the rest of the world. And then I think, well, that's not going to help me, and that sucks. So what's going to get me there? And that is thinking about why I show up. So I feel like a little bit of a cheat, because I feel like I do think about this, because it's something that helps me survive, helps me get through, helps me thrive too.
What reading suggestions do you have? What authors or writers do you keep in your back pocket?
First of all, read. Just read. Read the things you want to read because you want to read them. Don't read things that will impress people. Don't read things like that you think you should read. I mean, honestly, if I'm really honest, go ahead and do those too, because I just want you to read. Reading is so crucial. I don't really know any writers in real life anymore that say like, if I don't read, what do I need to read for? I don't think that. I feel like they're a myth. Those people, maybe they've gone into extinction. I'm sure some of them exist, but just read. Whatever gets you to read, great, cool. I think personally for me, it's like I'm thinking of my friends that love to read, and I'm just like, what are you reading? Like I love asking my friends like, what page are you on? Do you love it? Recently it's been like a joke. I don't have TikTok, but like on TikTok there are people that are like, how you do your 1 to 5 star rating, and like my friend and I were having a really serious conversation. Like, when's the last time you gave a 5 star? And I was like, oh my God, I don't know. But we're talking about reading. So like, who cares? I just love it. I love it. For me, as a writer, I think who I am as a writer is impacted by who I am as a reader. And that has been impacted notably in the last few years by my MFA experience. When I was in an MFA program a few years ago, there was a very strict regimen of, okay, you need to read this many books a quarter and or a semester. And so I was always reading like 5 books all the time. And I was always having to speak about those books. What do they mean to me? What am I learning? What's successful? Why? What's not successful in my opinion? Why? And then hearing my friends' answers, I was like, oh man, I love how you interpreted that. Having that regimen of learning how to read in a discernible, sort of knowledgeable way taught me so much. And then I think I sort of transformed that after grad school into reading things that I constantly can keep learning from. So for me, that's in my genre. My genre is thriller. So one of the authors that I always think about and always have her books on my shelf behind me, I'm always sort of like, I need to read that next one, is Karen Slaughter. She is like one of the goddesses of thriller, in my opinion. She just gets to the heart of things for me. Her characters are so memorable and fully fleshed out and flawed and make so many mistakes, but I really want the best for them despite what they do over and over again. So she comes to mind, absolutely. Taylor Jenkins Reid comes to mind. I mean, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo was one of the 5 stars that I gave because I think it's coming to like Netflix, which I'm so stoked about. I love her writing. I think it's so character rich. Those authors come to mind. But yeah, just read, just please read, please read. Just keep reading, talk, find your reading friends, get on Goodreads, whatever it is. Get on TikTok and look up all the book talk stuff. I don't do it, but only because I know it'll be a vacuum and I'll lose my life. But do it. Yeah, read and enjoy it and talk about it with your friends and learn. There's so much to learn. And now I've sort of adapted it where like that's how I watch TV, that's how I watch movies. So I'm always like kicking back and relaxing and doing research. So it's great.
Thank you so much for that list and making time to hang out with me. I have learned so much over our conversation. And again, thank you so much for helping me make my story, my Granny Witch story, as good as it could possibly be. It gives me a strong foundation to continue to develop that character over a series.
I'm so glad to be here with you today. And I think also like having that connection with you, meeting you first through your character and your story, is such a fun way of getting to know writers. I think it's also like incredibly vulnerable to share a story with a journal or a mag, and to be entrusted with that, I think, is a privilege. It's an honor. It's also another great way, besides reading and writing and watching shows and things. It's a great way for me to learn is to be an editor. So I really enjoy that. I feel like it gives me a sort of special look into the way other people write, the way other people digest life lessons and sort of bake them into their stories and their characters. So it feels special to me. It's something I really love, is just connecting with other writers. It's just another dose of magic that I'm always down for. So thanks so much for having me. I'm super thrilled. I can't wait to read Biddy and other iterations.